The southern half of the Green Padalway runs from the city to the Bowthorpe Centre. However, that actually isn't really the end of the Green Padalway. Bowthorpe's an interesting place because most of it was built in the early 70s, very much in the style of the new towns that were being built at the time. This means it has cycleways, and actually they're quite a good network of cycleways, although they are something of a closely guarded secret. Not everybody knows about them. But from the Bowthorpe Centre, we can head north onto Mayfly Way, and watch out for cyclists who don't look behind them. We'll speed things up a little bit now. You might notice on some of the lampposts along here, this is actually signed as the Green Padalway, although those signs seem to stop at the first junction. Quite where the Green Padalway is supposed to go after Bowthorpe Centre, I don't really know. But one of the places it does sort of go is to the Longwater shopping centre, and beyond that across Queen's Hills and into the Ringland Valley, which opens up some really nice country cycling routes. It would also take you across the A47 at the Longwater interchange, but that's a junction that was never built for anything other than motor traffic, and it's an interesting story, but for another time. On this trip, we're going to go to the Ringland Valley. Now, the Bowthorpe cycle tracks were built a long time ago, and they're perhaps not up to the full standard we might expect for properly built cycle tracks these days. And the crossing of some roads does leave a little bit desired, although it's not too bad. But notice there's absolutely no signposts. There's nothing to tell you this is a cycle route to anywhere. The cycle routes actually follow their own way, they don't follow the roads, which is good, it's nice, it gives you some nice cycle routes away from traffic, but some people might find these a little bit threatening, because you're out on your own, there's nobody here apparently. The secret to that, of course, is to make them more popular and to get more people to use them. Anyway, we come to another road crossing, Chapelbreak, which is not too bad. We've got a little central island, it's easy to get across, and the traffic on these roads is actually quite low anyway. After Chapelbreak Road, the surroundings change slightly as we enter the Bowthorpe employment area. Bowthorpe wasn't just built as a housing estate, it was actually built as a community with local employment, and this is where it happened. Barnard Road is somewhat different to the previous roads we've crossed. It's a very industrial road, so the traffic along here does tend to be vans and lorries to a large extent. So these cycle routes connected where people lived to the shops, schools, social facilities, and to where they would work. It was a total coherent plan, quite unlike the sprawling housing estates we're building now, which are entirely car dependent. And then eventually we come back into the real world of busy traffic. There is a little bit of cycle track that takes us to a toucan crossing where we can cross onto what doesn't look like a cycle track but actually is. It could be a bit wider. Look, there's plenty of room to build this properly. But then it stops. No signage, no indication telling you where to go. In fact, you can cut through to this little residential street, which is actually called Dereham Road, the same as the main road, and follow alongside the Dereham Road. So it's a fine cycle route, but there's nothing to tell you it's here. Eventually, somewhere on the left-hand side, on the side of the main road, the mysteriously ending cycle path starts again, randomly. I don't know why it starts there, but it does, and there's no obvious way to get to it. Although actually there is a little dirt track, but anyway, I missed it. So we go along to the end of the little residential road and cut across the grass on what is rapidly developing into another muddy track and join the proper cycle track again. And follow Dereham Road until we have to cross Longwater Lane. And this is on a two-stage token crossing. The first one we get across easy, but of course the second one we have to wait for a bit, so we'll cut that. And once across Longwater Lane, we're onto the cycle track along Dereham Road. Definitely worth speeding this bit up. It's quite featureless, but actually this section is actually not bad. It's a lovely running surface. This bit's quite new, when the road was widened a few years ago. Riding along a road like this is functional, it gets you to where you want to go, can't complain, you're off-road, it's not unpleasant. Now this is a horrible cold midwinter day, which isn't really ideal for anything, but this is typical of what you get if you build for car ownership. Long distances, along busy roads, and fairly featureless as well. There's new housing being built on the left hand side, and big new housing estate, and it's very different to Bowthorpe. These places are just built for car ownership. There's only one way in, one way out, and if you live there you've really got to have a car. You can't get anywhere without a car. We really shouldn't be building stuff like this now, but it's going up. Lots of it is going up. Watch out for the traffic light in the middle of the cycle track. And eventually we come to the delightful Longwater Trading Estate, which is one of these out-of-town shopping centres. Now the big feature here is the A47 junction with what used to be the old A47, the road we're on now. When it was built, this was just fields, and what they built was a simple dumbbell junction. No thought whatsoever was given to getting non-motorised traffic across this junction, and so it remains today. The only way across is to follow a muddy track and a very narrow footpath over the bridge, which actually surprisingly large numbers of people do, because on the other side of the junction is the Norfolk Showground, which has big scale events, and beyond that is Easton Village. So there's an absolute requirement for a safe walking and cycling route across this junction. One is being planned as we speak, and well, we await with interest to see what they come up with. We come into William Frost Way. We do need to take special care here. We cross over the entrance to Next, And then, once we get across that, we find there's no cycle track. Well, there is sort of. We have to cross over Williamfrost Way, right on the junction to the entrance of Sainsbury's. And what I should have done here was to head for the triangle in the middle of the road. I saw the entrance to the cycle track on the other side of the road, so I started to head for that, just as a vehicle is coming out of Sainsbury's, so had to change my mind and stay on the carriageway. So at the bus stop, I'll get back on the cycle track. But this place is what you get if you build for cars. Big car parks, huge distances between places, windswept, very unpleasant to be a pedestrian here. Yes, there's a bus stop, yes, there's a cycle track, but this was built for cars, and you can really tell, and it certainly wasn't planned properly. Next we have to cross the entrance to Sainsbury's, another entrance to Sainsbury's. This can be really difficult because traffic comes off the roundabout here and comes out of the Sainsbury's car park. You need your wits about you. Once we survived that, we turn left into Alex Moorhouse Road. I don't know what to say about this really. There's a cycle track along it. I suppose that makes it okay. We're heading for Queen's Hills now. This is the only way you can get to the Queen's Hills housing estate, and quite often the whole junction up at Longwater is just jammed solid with traffic. It's a bit of a nightmare, and the people who live on Queen's Hills have been asking for another route into their community for some time. I don't think it's going to happen, and yeah, the cycle track just stops. No explanation, no indication of where to go, so we get on the road and we go round a roundabout, and then, well, the cycle track is on the other side of the road, I think, but the trouble is here, well, it's not signposted, so I don't know where to go, so I'll stay on the road. And it looks like a cycle track the other side of the road, but I don't think it is, because it finishes again. There's this missing link on the other side. Presumably that business on the other side of the road existed before all this development happened, and they haven't managed to build a cycle track past it. But the cycle track does start again, and before we get to the next roundabout, we cross. And once we do that, we leave the hellhole of Longwater Business Park behind us and head towards Queen's Hills on what should be a really nice cycle track, except of course they were digging it up and hadn't really made any arrangements for getting cyclists past it. Not untypical. And then we're on to a long downhill section as we cross the Tud Valley. And of course, having crossed the Tud Valley, we have to go up the other side. And this is a bit of a climb. I'll be honest, you work on this one. But this is what makes cycling such good exercise. So we plod up the hill as quickly as we can. I am pedalling, honestly. You can see by the way the bike's swaying from side to side. This is quite a steep climb. And we get up to the top, and when we reach the top, we're into Queen's Hills proper. Nice houses. Yeah, it's suburbia. This has the appearance of a major road, but really it doesn't connect to anywhere, so it's not that busy. The cycle track continues, it's shared use of course all this, but the cycle track continues over various side roads, past the playground and stuff. Not really much to say about this, but it's not an unpleasant ride, it's not an unpleasant place. Queen's Hills isn't badly designed really, it's got lots of open spaces and places for kids to play, things like that. But, it's very new. Nothing really is established yet, the trees are still quite small. When these trees grow big, the place will bed down a bit, I think it'll look a lot nicer. And eventually we come to the great mystery of Queen's Hill, the unused bus road. Now, a long story behind this, but as part of the Norwich Area Transport Study from a few years ago, this was scheduled to be a cross-valley bus route, but it never happened. And it's never been fully explained why it hasn't happened. And this bus lane has sat here unused for the better part of 10 years now, I think. Much to the annoyance of the people in Queen's Hills. I don't think it's unfair to criticise this whole area through Longwater trading estate as chaotic. The cycle tracks, what there are of them, are quite good, but they don't connect. The crossings of the roads are absolutely diabolical. I mean, they're really dangerous. You have to take care, extreme care. And there's missing links. Why are there missing links? Why has nothing been done in all the years this has been here? It's just as though nobody bothered, and they've left these gaps unconnected. And that's without talking about the mess of the Longwater junction itself. That's for another video. It goes down the valley and ends on Ringland Lane, where this trip will finish.